Welcome all, Coleman Report Live, January 23rd edition. Lance, you're going to be at Mid-America in Denver on February 5th. Tell us about that.
Well, it's America West, Bob, and I look forward to it. I'm going to be just teaching a session on servicing and liquidation. It's a great conference. First time I've had an opportunity to participate in America West, and really look forward to meeting some of you there.
Very good. Do you have the details? I guess we have a slide on that. If you're interested, we'll have that. You know how to ask questions. We got a number of great questions. We got a lot of content this week. There's a certificate, download that, save it. And let's go right to the poll question of the week. This came up last week. We got some feedback from some of you saying that Lance is wrong.
Hey, Bob, I had conversations multiple times every day of the week, including Saturday, not Sunday, ever since last Thursday's Coleman report.
Good. Well, this obviously it's a confusing issue, so we're going to talk about it. And there you go. Does that surprise you, Lance?
It does not surprise me at all, Bob, because and we'll discuss this because there are varying opinions on it.
Right. So for those of you who say yes and no, we'll talk about that. Let's go to the second poll question real quick. Lance, we did a assisted living facility webinar yesterday. You and I love doing these. You know, we should brand these better. They're monthly underwriting industry webinars. We do hotel, restaurants, sea stations, and this one was very well attended. We got a lot of great feedback. And one of the questions, one of the topics we talked about is what performs better. Multi-site, in other words, you have an entrepreneur who runs more than one facility. What performs better, multi-site or a traditional mom and pop who run their own nursing home, Lance?
And Bob, I want to encourage everybody, these industry webinars, there's so much statistical information that could be impactful in your underwriting on these.
Yeah, well, and we love doing it. Our attitude is very simple. Instead of when you get a new industry, instead of spending hours and hours and hours of doing the research and finding out, we try to present it to you in a format that makes you an expert, or maybe not an expert, at least to know where to go to get more information.
Hey, Bob, I think these people were on the webinar yesterday.
They were. The answer is a single site performs a little bit better than multi-site. Now, one of the things we love about this industry are the loss rates, very minimal loss. But as in anything else, when you have an entrepreneur who wants to branch out to a second location, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, nursing facility, gas station, how are they going to run it? Third question. SBA loans can be approved for religious affiliated nursing homes.
Trick question, Bob. Trick question.
Oh, we have no trick questions. We have just, and yeah, I think that was about our response yesterday, 50-50. The answer is they can. They just need to have a certification, a statement saying that it's open to anybody. Correct, Lance?
Well, it's kind of like the old Curves franchise, right. And they said as long as they make membership available to the general public, you can't restrict it based on, you know, religion, sex, age, but it can be restricted in terms of total number of members, right. And the same way, as long as they don't restrict being in the nursing home to being of a particular religion, it's okay.
This applies to daycares as well. It could be a Jewish daycare, as long as they admit kids from any faith, or it's not faith-based test, you can do an SBA loan. All right, Lance, let's get into this. You and I talked about this. This is the hot topic. Lance, take it away.
Well, you know, we had a question about collateral on an SBA loan. It was a $200,000 loan. The individual had a personal residence with $100,000 in equity. There was no real collateral. This question was from my friend Paul, and he said other banks were offering it without taking a second on their residential real estate. And I told Paul, you know, they're doing it wrong, you're doing it right. The SOP states if you're doing credit scored loans and it meets an acceptable credit score, it states that at a minimum you should take all assets that are being financed by the SBA loan, and then it floats down and says you need to look at the applicant's real estate. That's where it gets a little fuzzy because applicant, guarantor, which is which. So I picked up the phone because my interpretation of the SOP is you should take all available collateral in that circumstance. It's prudent. I would certainly emphasize to our participant lenders, if your in-house bank policy would take a second on that residential real estate, then you have to too, because the SOP is very clear about it. So I called a couple of SBA directors who did not want to be named and just had a discussion about this, and they both agreed with me that taking all available collateral is in the spirit of the SOP. But both also indicated that loans being submitted to Citrus Heights for GP processing were being approved without taking the second on residential real estate. So very confusing message. And then I had another discussion with a couple of 30+ year SBA lenders who are SOP geeks like me. And we were talking about applicant. What is an applicant? The question is, if you have sole proprietorship, Bob, the applicants, if Katie's starting a business, is Katie. So if she has a personal residence, that is applicant real estate. But it gets confusing when you've got an LLC and the applicant is actually the business entity. So in strict interpretation of the SOP saying applicant's real estate, that would lead me to believe it would be okay not to take the second mortgage on residential real estate if the applicant is a business entity. However, I still think prudent lending standards push toward taking a second on that residential real estate as meeting the all available collateral rule. So long and short of it, guys, I've talked out of both sides. My wife tells me I do this all the time. You talk out of both sides of your mouth. And I'm telling you, it is okay and it's not okay. Here's my best practice. If I were wanting to do a loan under 350 and not include the residential real estate as collateral, I would submit it for GP processing. If SBA approves it that way, I think you're in good shape. I would personally hesitate to do a loan under delegated authority without taking all available collateral, which would include residential real estate. Now, there isn't a wrong and a right, because when I talked to two SBA directors, I got told you're right, but it's being implemented in a different way.
Lance, I have a couple questions. First of all, number one, the SOP is very clear. If it's under 25,000, we don't need collateral. So
yeah, under 25, no collateral is necessary.
Now, the question I have is, you have in here in your response 25% or more equity of fair market value. Can the lender implement a policy that says SBA will only give us credit for 80% of real estate collateral? So if we have a $500,000 loan, is the 25% equity based off the $500,000 or the equity from $400,000 minus the lien?
It is based on the market value of the home, which is going to require, a BPO, an appraisal, at a minimum, some sort of source that indicates the home's value.
Can I use Zillow? Can I use Zillow
depending on the loan size, possibly. I mean, I would do at least an in-house valuation. Again, it's kind of a confusing area because, you're supposed to take all available collateral. The SOP indicates all available collateral, but the word applicant is in that statement, Bob, which, again, in the sole proprietorship, the applicant's an individual.
Well, I think Lance, you give great advice. I know you're a fan of, if you're a delegated lender for your Paris score, submit a few GP. If you have this type of question, I think it's permissible to submit a GP, and once Citrus Heights signs off on it, you're good to go.
Yeah, I did not give a concrete answer here, Bob, which you know I love to do that. But my best practice takeaway is if I'm doing one under 350, I'm not going to take the residential real estate. I'm sending it in GP and getting SBA's blessing. If I'm going to do it delegated authority, I'm going to go ahead and take all available collateral, which would include a junior on the residential real estate.
Let's go to the SOP. Let's go to the next page, Joseph. Do we have a slide in the SOP in this?
No, we don't. It's just the page listed. Let me pull it up.
There's a citation down there, but the SOP is very clear that we need to take it. However, industry standard, it's a little murky in what's happening, and SCB isn't holding lenders' feet to the fire as of this moment. That may change, especially after this conversation.
Well, and here's the other thing that one of the directors told me, Bob. You know, the SOP states one thing. Loans don't default tomorrow. They default 3, 5, 7 years down the road. What if they dig their heels in and interpret that SOP to mean you should have taken all available collateral? So, I mean, it's. I think it's prudent to submit those you don't take all available for GP processing. If you're going to do it PLP or Express, you need to consider taking all available collateral.
Yeah, and then we talked about the small loans. That's the next slide, Joseph. And the small loans, we're not doing that. And again, the SBA is they want to see, and I would definitely, if you don't take it, I would put in my write-up, we're not taking the collateral because that's not our normal policy. If it's Express loan, we get to follow our own policies. So.
Well, the important.
Go ahead.
The very important thing to note is look at your commercial lending policy for a similar size loan. If you would take the second on residential real estate on a non-SBA loan of that size, you have to take it on your SBA loan.
Right, but if you don't do it in Express, you get to follow your own rules. But I would address a collateral shortfall at a minimum in the credit memo. Hey, Paul is asking another cool question, and we're back to next slide. There we go. What about seller notes, goodwill?
Oh, well, Paul's question was related to the increased equity injection requirement that was in the SOP prior to the 50-10-5K, where if you had blue sky or goodwill above a certain number, you had to have a 25% equity injection, as opposed to the 50-10-5K, which states it's a 10% equity injection.
Nathan asked a great question. He's trying to do some modeling on credit scored smaller loans, default and charge-off wise. My recommendation is very simple: is you have access to the SBA loan database, get an intern and have someone go through and sort those, and you can sort them any way you want, and then you can compare apples to apples in terms of what you're doing. We all feel that smaller loans have higher default and charge-off rates, but we have to do this analysis to support it. And so go to the underlying data and download the Excel spreadsheet and do that. And it's on SBA.gov, Lance.
All right, one thing I would like to see, Bob and Joe, write this down if you can, please. In the future, I'd like to see a poll question, find out how many people are doing credit scored loans. I think it's something that many of the larger SBA lending institutions are absolutely doing credit scored loans.
Lance, let's talk about e-signing. How's that work?
We actually don't do it.
Okay.
So for me, I can't, we did some e-signatures at the previous institution I was with using SBA 1 for some of the common SBA forms like the 1919, and it worked quite well. Currently I'm in an institution and we're getting wedding signatures on everything we're doing.
And Joseph, let's ask that question next week in a poll as well. We'll see how many people are doing that. Katie, let's bring you in here. What's going on with SBA Form 912?
Well, we covered this a little while back, but the Small Business Administration gave us a little more clarification on this. If For some reason, there is not a live scan fingerprint location, which is what they're trying to get everyone to move toward. Then you can submit physical prints. What they kind of give you an idea of how long it's right now. Right now, it's taking about 30 days to do it digital. So if you're considering that, it's going to take much longer if you have to do these ink cards. And you can get those ink cards from an SBA processing center or from a police station if there's one nearby that has that, and you mail it in. You want to make sure you mail it in in a form that's going to get there quickly, because otherwise this is going to take a very long time to get processed. But it is possible now.
Good. Katie, you're talking about the latest OIG report where there were 21 defaulted loans. And by the way, yes, we got the email. Okran didn't identify them, OIG did. So we're sorry for the typo on that. Okran sort of got upset at us for doing that. Well, was there a common theme on, and we're going to do this in 2 parts. We did the first 11 yesterday, and we'll do the next 11 next week, or 10, or whatever it is. Katie, is there a common theme on what the problem is that the lenders are making mistakes with?
Well, they describe them all as inadequate documentation, but to clarify, there are very specific things that they were listing in the explanation panel on that. What I saw several times was missing promissory notes. That was counted maybe 3 or 4 times in these. The packaging fee, yeah, the packaging fee for was not itemized for Form 159. That happened maybe 3 times in there. They were missing proof of equity injection. We see this all the time. That's a big problem we're seeing. And no hazard insurance. That was another one that was listed several times.
Lance, how do we lose a note? How does that happen?
Well, I don't know, but you know, one of the common themes, there were a number of problems in these loans that were reviewed, but Katie's perfectly right. There was missing documentation. You know, I think that, you know, I feel fortunate to be at an institution that sometimes we go overboard to make sure we get it right. And I think that's an important thing to do as an SBA lender. You need a closing checklist, and you need to make sure it's there. And, you know, I don't know how you have a missing note. Now, I think in one of these instances, Bob, it was owner financing on standby that is being counted as equity injection. They did not have a copy of the note.
Right.
Hopefully, Bob, they have a copy of the note on the SBA loan.
Well, I know sometimes in acquisitions, the files can be a little sketchy, and some of these may have been from an acquisition.
Well, the other thing, Bob, is equity injection continues to creep into the conversation every time there's files that are inadequate.
We have a solution for that we're going to talk about. Katie, last week you talked about these rogue loan officers. What happened to Mr. Whartonby?
Well, Whartonby was a bank loan officer at Trustmark Bank, and what he did is he submitted 2 loans to Bank of America under completely fake names. These are fake businesses. He named them Memphis Design Groups, LLC, and Woodridge Investments. Both of them were completely fake. They ended up actually approving these 2 loans, and of course they defaulted, which in turn impacts shareholders, employees, and customers at both banks, which is just a huge problem for both of them. This man not only is going to be serving 18 months in prison, but he's also now prohibited from ever opening another line of credit, and he has to pay restitution of $351,000.
Hey, I want to announce we are going to have our event for all our winners on April 15th in Las Vegas, and there are all the winners. We've announced them all. Congratulations to you all. For those of you who aren't on this list, please consider submitting a nomination form next year. We're going to have it in Las Vegas at the Palazzo. Government Loan Solutions will be sponsoring that. They're going to buy your lunch and your +1 And we're going to open up to the industry. If anybody else wants to come, and we're going to charge you basically where we're being charged. This is not a money-making thing. The next thing is, and also, if any of you want to do this, this is an add-on. And Joseph and I just got back. We're going to do a tour of Death Valley. Lance, when are we going to get you out there?
I want to come out, Bob. In fact, I've got a 4-wheel drive truck, Bob. Do you think I could bring it out and run it through there?
Oh, absolutely. You can see the road. This is not, I'm not taking anybody on any difficult stuff. And what you do is you can rent a Jeep out of any 4-wheel vehicle out of Death Valley. And as long as it's not raining, we'll be fine. We'll go to a cool ghost town. Titus Canyon's a nice little 3-hour tour, and go down to the Badwater Basin, which is the lowest point, and Dante's Peak, which is above that, one of the highest points in Death Valley. And I have to cap it to 10, maybe 12 vehicles. So if you're interested, reach out to me directly. But anyway, that's just, if that's on your bucket list, let me know. We've taken bankers out now 3 or 4 times. Okay, so what we're doing is Lance is going to be talking about next week on servicing actions you must perform in 2020. I think based on the thing, maybe we should do a little, and we can talk about that also more next week, is the best practice on reviewing your loan files to make sure we're not making these errors. I'm going to be doing a webinar on collateral calculations, and then we have some other things coming up as well. Joseph, do we have any questions?
Yeah, a couple of clarifications. Basically, CC from Zions Bank is asking, we're also told to follow our internal procedures, and if the lender does not make all available collateral, then can the lender rely on that statement?
For an express, go ahead, Lance.
She's saying her internal policy says that they don't have to take all available.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that would indicate that you'll be fine. I still, again, would, if you're not going to take all available, submit it GP on the loans under 350 that you're credit scoring.
That's it.
Very good. Thank you all. Send your questions. And and there's the updated thing. Oh, and we just announced we're going to do our secondary market summit in Washington, D.C. on December 9th. And the World Lenders Roundtable, which is with the USDA BNI. That is a free event sponsored by Thomas USAF. And obviously, and we do those back to back. But you can see all the fun stuff coming up. Lance is going to be in Denver, and all the rest of the cool stuff. Are you in Mid-America this year, Lance?
I'll be in Mid-America, Bob. It's one I don't want to miss. It's a favorite of mine.
Yeah, I think it's a great event. Yeah. Very good. Thank you all very much. Have a nice weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good weekend.